Hey, I'm Jameis, and today we're playing Grimdark Future Firefight version 3.1 from one-page rules. We won't be tossing handfuls of dice like we usually do in this game. Instead, we'll be using the Diceless OPR mod version 0.2, which brings the game into the realm of pure strategy. And because someone is bound to get smart about it, I will point out now that yes, we will actually use dice during the game, but only as counters to track wounds. We will also roll dice to determine the number of objectives to place and to decide who goes first. No dice rolls will be made during the course of the game itself. Okay? Okay. Today's match is between the Jackals and the Machine Cult with 300 points per side. The board is already set up to depict a wrecked Machine Cult transport, which has crashed on a desert world. The survivors of one of the escape pods have returned to recover valuable assets. But a team of Jackals who inhabit this world are also approaching, hoping to scavenge some new technology. Any unit located on a platform, any of the white-gray platforms or the ship's bridge, will be considered in cover. The craters and the black furrow from the ship's crash are difficult terrain, and the smoke clouds will be dangerous terrain, which also block line of sight. Though the game itself will be diceless, we will roll a die here to determine how many objectives to place. We roll a d6 as a d3, which means the 3 we roll here is actually a 2. Adding 1, that means we will place 3 objectives. The first objective marker is placed on the ruined ship's bridge, which, as the brain of the ship, holds a wealth of technological treasures that are sure to interest both sides. The second objective marker is placed next to the ship's central database, another source of Machine Cult secrets, and a high priority for both the Jackals and the Cultists. The third and final objective marker is placed on a precariously high ledge. We may assume that some arcane bit of technology survived the crash and is lying there now, waiting to be recovered by whoever might dare to claim it. Today, the Jackals are fielding a scrappy group with a stalker armed with a claw hand and a jagged hook, which gives it an attack with deadly 3, a Jackal Elite armed with a missile launcher with a 30-inch range and deadly 3, an Elite Veteran armed with an Elite Shotgun and deploying as a Shaman with caster +2, a Hound with Hunter Breed, which gives it furious when charging, a Tracker with a hunting rifle and charged ammo, and a Jackal Vulture with a scrap shotgun and stinger bombs. The Jackals will deploy the Vulture and the Tracker via ambush in a later round. The Stalker and the Hound will deploy as scouts. For the Machine Cult, we've got a Raider Cavalry unit with a G Carbine and P Breath, a Colt Ranger with an arc gun, a Sect Leader armed with a burst carbine and an energy sword, a Sky Stalker with a P Thrower, and a Breacher Cyborg with a contortion cannon and an arc claw. The Cultists will deploy their Sky Stalker later via ambush. The Raider Cavalry will deploy as a scout. Time to roll off to see who goes first. The Jackals roll a 6. The Cultists will need a 6 too if they want to force a reroll, but they roll a 4. Looks like the Jackals get first choice then, and they opt to deploy on the bottom edge of the board. The Machine Cult will deploy on the top edge. The Jackals defer to the Machine Cult for first deployment, so the Cultists send their Breacher Cyborg to cover behind a bulkhead fragment. The Jackals then deploy their Jackal Elite unit up high. Look out, Machine Cult, that thing's got a missile launcher with a 30-inch range. The Machine Cult Sect Leader deploys cautiously behind a large segment of the ship. The Jackal Elite Veteran also plays it safe, hunkering down behind a large cargo container. The Colt Ranger sets up behind one of the billowing smoke clouds. With Strider, the black furrow poses no challenge, but it still needs to beware of the smoke cloud itself. Now, scouts deploy. Again, the Jackals defer to the Machine Cult, and the Cultists push their Raider Cavalry toward the comm station, presumably so they can report back to the Cult's High Priests. As long as the Raider is on that platform, it's in cover. The Jackals send their Stalker that way too, moving it in steps around the ship's bridge and then deep into the board, to hunker down behind that smoke cloud next to the comm station. Finally, the Jackals send the Hound racing around a large segment of the ship, and then inward toward the center of the board, where it will duck behind some cargo containers and wait for more orders. At the start of round 1 then, we have the Machine Cult deployed with the Colt Ranger behind a smoke cloud here in the upper left corner, the Breacher Cyborg in cover here behind a bulkhead fragment, the Sect Leader hiding behind the corner of this segment of wreckage, and the Raider Cavalry here next to the comm station on the right side of the board. And the Jackals are deployed with the Hound near the center of the board here behind some cargo containers, the Stalker here behind a smoke cloud near the comms station, the Jackal Elite posted here in an elevated lookout and ready to use that missile launcher to devastating effect, and the Elite Veteran hunkered down here behind a cargo container. Here we go, folks. Round number 1. The Stalker senses the Raider cavalry and charges in, brandishing its devastating jagged hook and claw hand. We're going to have to resolve this combat, so we should probably pause briefly and talk about how we're going to do this without dice. Instead of dice, the Diceless OPR mod uses a sequence of numbered squares like this. This is called a track. When an action needs to be resolved, whether an attack or defense or morale check, a token is advanced along the track like this. If the token lands on a shaded square without the help of any bonus or penalty, that's the equivalent of rolling a natural 6. If it lands on the square immediately after, that's the equivalent of rolling a natural 1. And if the token passes one of the dotted lines, called a deadline, that means that whatever was being attempted fails. When a unit needs to make a quality or defense check, just subtract 1 from the quality or defense, and that's how much the token needs to move. For example, a Q3 unit would advance the token by 2, and a Q6 unit would advance the token by 5. Bonuses always subtract from that amount, and penalties always add to it, but you can never add less than 1 or more than 5 to the track in any quality or defense check. Lastly, a unit may voluntarily take up to 2 points of penalty during a round, advancing the token along the track by up to 2 extra squares. This is called a free penalty, or FP, and is a pretty handy strategic device. I'm sure we'll see it used often. Okay now, let's see how this works in practice. The Stalker, a Q5 unit, attacks at +4 with that jagged claw, with a -1 bonus for its carnivore trait. It'll advance the track by 4, and then back 1 for the carnivore bonus, which doesn't pass any deadlines. That's a success. The Raider Cavalry, a D4 unit, now needs to try and defend, and does so at +3. However, the Jagged Claw had AP 4, which, when added to the +3, would be +7 total. We can't add more than 5 to the track though, so we advance the token 3 and another 2 for the AP for a total of +5. This does pass a deadline, and the unmodified +3 actually lands on the square after the deadline, which is a natural 1. That doesn't actually matter here though. The Raider fails its defense, which hurts. That claw is deadly 3 and so deals 3 wounds. Stalker isn't done yet though. It's got 1 more attack with its claw hand, once again at +4, with -1 for carnivore. This time it crosses a deadline and the attack misses. The Raider Cavalry is tough 3 and now has 3 wounds, so it must make a wound check. We add 2 to the track, plus the number of wounds, minus the tough value, for a total of 2. It doesn't pass a deadline, and so succeeds. It is stunned instead of knocked out. The Colt Ranger activates next and rushes forward towards some cargo boxes. There's nothing in range, so it just hunkers down there. The Jackal Elite now steps forward and takes a bead on the Breacher Cyborg all the way across the table. That 30-inch range is no joke. It attacks at +3 and ignores cover thanks to the missile launcher's lock-on trait. It advances the track and hits. The Cyborg must defend, which it does at +3. That takes the track past the deadline, though. It fails, and that missile has deadly 3. That's 3 wounds against its own tough 3, so it must make a wound check at +2. It passes and is stunned. A rough start for the Machine Colt. The track is in an awkward state right now, so close to a deadline, and the cultists opt to just unstun the Raider Cavalry, since anything more aggressive would probably fail. The Jackals opt for a passive turn as well, since they have nothing that could succeed on the current track. They send the Elite Veteran forward to hide behind some cargo boxes. The cultists have a couple options left, and they opt to unstun the Cyborg. The game of hot potato with the track continues, with the Jackals sending their hound forward toward the stairs and objective number 2. The cultists finally realize that they can do something with the current track. Their sect leader attacks at +2, which is just enough to succeed with the track at 22. They send him forward to shoot at the Stalker with his carbine, which is A3. Let's see how he plays this. The first attack advances 2 and lands on a shaded square, which is the same as a natural 6. That's an automatic success. Since that's an automatic success, he can help his next attack along by taking a free penalty of +1 to that attack to push the token over the deadline. This doesn't affect the attack because the natural 6 always succeeds. See how handy those free penalties can be? Strategy. His second and third attacks also hit, ending with the track at 5. That's 3 hits. The stalker must defend, which it does at +4. It also is in cover thanks to the ship platform, so it gets a -1 bonus. It's not enough though. All 3 hits land, and it takes 3 wounds. Lastly, it fails the wound check too and is knocked out. An enormously effective play by the sect leader. Whew, that's the end of round 1. The machine cult has their ranger stationed in cover here. The cyborg remains behind the bulkhead fragment here. The sect leader has stepped out of cover and is currently here, and the raider cavalry is in cover beside the comm station. The Jackal's hound is hiding near the stairs leading to Objective 2 here. The elite veteran is hiding behind some cargo boxes here, and the Jackal elite is still stationed up high with an amazing view and a deadly weapon. Round number 2. The Jackals and the Machine Cult both want to deploy their ambushing units, and since the Jackals won the roll-off at the beginning of the game, they're the boss. They defer the first deployment to the Machine Cult, who drop their Skystalker deep behind enemy lines. Looks like they might be thinking about taking on that Jackal elite with the missile launcher. The Jackals then deploy their tracker up near Objective number 3, another long-range sniper on a high platform. I think the cultists made a mistake not putting their Skystalker up there first. Finally, the Jackals plant their Vulture behind some cargo containers in the middle of the board, perhaps with an eye towards supporting the Hound or Veteran Elite. The Machine Cult went last in round number 1, so the Jackals get to go first now. It should surprise no one that they activate that Jackal Elite again, once more targeting the Cyborg Breacher with that missile launcher. The track goes to 21, and then they spend their FPs to push the track forward 2 more. The attack still hits, and the track is now in a bad spot for the cultists. The Cyborg defends at +3, which crosses a deadline and fails. It now has 6 wounds, and advances the track by 5 for the wound check. It fails, and the Cyborg is knocked out. The tracker is just within range of the Colt Ranger's arc gun. The Ranger makes 2 attacks at +3 and hits with the first one. The tracker defends at +4 and a -1 bonus for being in cover, but it's not enough. Its defense fails and it takes 1 wound. The wound check succeeds and the tracker is stunned. Looks like a game of tit for tat here, with the Hound now charging in to take on the Ranger. It attacks at +4, with a -1 bonus in melee due to Carnivore. The first hit lands on a shaded square, a double hit thanks to the Furious trait. The Hound then uses 2 FPs to bump the track over the deadline, making it so its next attack succeeds as well. 3 hits. The Ranger defends at +3, but only blocks 1 hit. It takes 2 wounds and passes its wound check. It ends this activation stunned. The track is in a bad state for the cultists, so they avoid anything aggressive and simply move the Raider cavalry into cover. The Jackal Vulture takes this chance to fill the vacuum left by the Raider cavalry, rushing into that space beside the comms console. The Skystalker is being cautious, creeping up 1 step closer to the Jackal Elite and hiding in cover behind that smoke cloud. The Elite Veteran moves in and hunkers down on the bridge, claiming Objective number 1 for the Jackals. The sect leader has no clear shot at anything, and so opts to move around behind cover, a wise move given that Jackal Elite with the missile launcher. With nothing else to activate, the Jackals end the round by unstunning the tracker. Round 2 wraps up with the Colt Ranger stunned here, the sect leader in cover here, the Raider cavalry hiding and licking its wounds here, and the Skystalker all the way down here, creeping up on the Jackal Elite. The Jackal Hound is poised to finish the Ranger here, the tracker is well situated here next to Objective number 3, the Jackal Vulture is hiding behind the comms console here, the Jackal Elite is ensconced in its lookout here, and the Elite Veteran is here, having claimed Objective number 1. The Jackals currently control objective number 1 on the wrecked bridge of the ship and objective number 3 on the high ledge. The Machine Colt needs to up their game, and soon. Round number 3. The Jackals had the last activation in round 2, so the Cultists get to go first. The Ranger is extremely vulnerable. It's a long shot, but the Cultists opt to unstun the Ranger and hope for the best. Predictably, the Hound charges the Ranger. Its first attack misses, but it uses its FP to push the track so its second attack hits on a natural 6, which Furious turns into 2 hits. The Ranger defends at +3, but only manages to prevent one of the hits and takes another wound. It fails its wound check and is knocked out. The Hound uses its consolidation move to take it a few inches closer to objective number 2. The Skystalker leaps from cover and draws a bead on the Jackal Elite. It has 2 attacks at +2, ignoring cover, and both attacks hit. It should be noted that the Stalker's gun has reliable and thus should have attacked at +1, not +2. Mistakes happen. The Jackal Elite defends at +3 but only prevents 1 hit. It is wounded and advances the track for its wound check. Wait! They goofed! The Elite only has 1 wound, not 2, and so the track should only have advanced 2 for the wound check. Regardless, it succeeds and ends up stunned. The Vulture has its eye on the Raider Cavalry. It pops out of cover and takes a shot. 4 attacks at +3 with AP1. Brutal. 2 of the attacks hit, and the Raider defends against one of them. Oops, they forgot to add 1 for the gun's AP. Oh well, the outcome would have been the same. The Raider is now at 4 wounds, but still manages to pass its wound check. Stunned again. The Sect Leader charges the Vulture now, energy sword waving. That's 3 attacks at +2 with AP1 and rending. An excellent play by the Sect Leader. 2 of the attacks hit with rending, and the third hits without. Looks like the Defender forgot to account for the sword's AP1. Even with that boon, they only managed to block 1 hit. That's 2 wounds. But they mark 3. Rookie mistake. Still, they pass the wound check, and the Vulture is stunned. The Tracker sees an opportunity, shooting fish in a barrel, so to speak. It walks to the edge of the platform and shoots straight down at the stunned Raider. Just 1 shot, but it's at +1 because of reliable. It takes the track to 24 and hits. The Raider, already stunned, is knocked out. This is bad because the Cultists are now down to half of their original starting force. Each surviving unit will need to succeed at a morale check at the end of this round, or rout. It's not looking good for the Machine Colt. The Elite Veteran activates next, but knows that a morale check is coming up for the Cultists. The track guarantees at least 1 failure, so the Veteran will hold position. The Jackal's final activation is to unstun the Jackal Elite. Time for that morale check. The Cultists have 2 units remaining, the Skystalker and the Sect Leader. The track is at 24, and whichever unit attempts the morale check first will fail. The Cultists have a difficult choice to make. Which unit is more valuable? Looks like they opt to have the Skystalker route. It advances the track 2 and fails. The Sect Leader also advances the track 2 and succeeds. The Cultists are down to a single unit at the end of round 3, their Sect Leader here. The Jackals, on the other hand, still have their Tracker here, the Hound here, the Vulture stunned here by the comm station, the unopposed Jackal Elite here, and the Elite Veteran here by objective number 1. The Jackals are still holding objective 1 on the ruined bridge, and objective 3 held by the Tracker on the ledge. It looks extremely unlikely that the Machine Colt will be able to prevent them from taking all 3 objectives in the next round. It's the final round, folks. Things are looking grim for the Machine Colt, but at least they get to activate first. The Sect Leader would love to take out the Tracker on the ledge above it, even though the objective would remain under Jackal control. Given the state of the track, though, the best it could do would be to stun it. Not good enough. The Sect Leader wants blood. So it charges the stunned vulture and knocks it out, at least, and then consolidates up to the comms station. Perhaps it can at least phone home and make the High Priests aware of the disaster here. The tracker does the only thing it can do. It takes a shot at the sect leader. That's a single attack at +1, which takes the track to 5 and hits. The sect leader defends at +3 with a cover bonus of -1, but the track crosses a deadline and the sect leader takes its first wound of the game. No wound check is necessary though because the sect leader is tough 3. The Hound rushes for Objective 2, completing the Jackals' collection and giving them access to all the delicious machine cult secrets in the ship's database. The elite veteran, with nothing else to do, hops up and makes its claim on Objective number 1 clearer. The Jackal elite will hold position, keeping a watchful eye on the horizon in case machine cult reinforcements arrive. And that brings us to the end of the round and the end of the game. The Jackals are the overwhelming victors, having seized all 3 objectives and almost completely tabling the machine cult. I hope you've enjoyed watching this battle report and demonstration of Diceless OPR. Personally, I really appreciate the additional layers of strategy that OPR brings to the game, and I hope you'll give it a try. You can find the rules linked in the description below. Happy gaming!